I've spent years trying to find backpacking gear that is actually good and solves one of the biggest problems in backpacking: affordability. And I think I've come as close as ever with a complete list of everything that you need to go on a backpacking trip with nothing except one item costing over $100 and the majority of the items costing under $20. All the way from this sleeping pad that you've probably never seen before to this tent that originally had me questioning if I'd survive the night in it. This is gear that is not only good for beginner backpackers on a budget, but is stuff that I wouldn't hesitate to bring on a high-level trip. We're gonna start by talking about the big three items, which includes your pack, your tent, and your sleep system. This is the backpacking gear that you could spend the most amount of money on. There's a lot of really expensive big three options, but like I said, all but one of these items cost under $100. The budget pack for this list is the Decathlon MT100. It stands out by being fairly lightweight for an affordable pack. It only costs $99. It has an easy to access water bottle pocket here. There's a lot of backpacks out there where you have to be either a contortionist or have crazy long arms in order to reach water bottles on the side pocket. So it's really nice to have this easy access here. It also has an adjustable torso, which allows you to dial in the fit no matter how long your torso is. And that is really important for being able to carry a lot of weight inside your pack comfortably. This pack does have good carrying capacity due to that adjustable torso, as well as a really solid frame, hip belt, and then shoulder straps. You could probably carry 40 to 50 pounds in here. And at that point, it's not really the pack that's the limiting factor, it's more your body. The trade-offs with this pack aren't too bad. It's not the lightest pack on the market. You can get way lighter packs if you're willing to pay more money, but it's also not super heavy. The other downside with it is that the pockets are kind of weird. You only have the one water bottle pocket. There's no water bottle pockets on the left-hand side, and then there's no hip belt pocket on the left-hand side either, and then no front pocket, which for me is a big deal. I love having a stretchy front pocket in order to store things I need throughout the day, like a rain jacket. My tent of choice that costs under $100 is the Kloss Nature Crux one-person tent. It also comes in a 2-person and 3-person version. What really stood out to me with this tent is how storm-worthy it is and how easy it is to use. This thing feels really solid once you have it set up. There's a lot of guy out points on it. I would not hesitate to take this tent out in big rain, strong winds, or even winter time. It's just that solid. And then it's really easy to set up. You just have 2 poles that cross over each other in order to set up the inner. Then you put the fly over top of it and you're all set. There's 2 big trade-offs with this tent. The first one being that it is fairly heavy. And that's probably going to be a trend we're going to see with all the gear on this list is in order to get the gear to be affordable, it sacrifices some weight savings. The second thing is that this is not a big tent. If you're over 5'10", you're probably gonna have troubles fitting in the 1-person. You might wanna go for the 2-person, but the 2-person does weigh quite a bit more. But if you're under 5'10", then the 1-person is gonna be a really solid option for you. An alternative to this tent that costs more, but is still relatively affordable is the Nature Hike Mongar 2 tent. That's one of the best tents on the market that costs just over $100. The sleeping pad is the Nature Hike NKTR 5.8. This is probably one of the most impressive items on this list. It only costs $70, is fairly lightweight, lighter than even some of the more expensive sleeping pads on the market, relatively warm and comfortable. This really just has one downside. That downside is that it's a little bit thin, so it's gonna be fine for most people out there. But if you're on the heavier side, then you might bottom this pad out and be hitting your hip or your shoulder on the ground. Like I said, that's only if you're probably over 220 pounds. For everyone else, this is probably going to be a really good pad and probably one of the best options out there as far as sleeping pads go, even regardless of the price. If you are interested in any of the gear that I'm talking about today, I will have links to it down in the video description. For a pillow, it's hard to beat the Trekology 2.0 pillow. It has a nice soft top to it, really supportive baffling, so you don't really feel like you're laying on a balloon as much, even though it is an inflatable pillow. And then it has a pad strap to keep it locked on your sleeping pad so it's not flying around your tent over the course of the night. The one downside with the Trekology is that it's not the thickest pad out there. So if you do have broader shoulders, you might want to be sticking some clothing underneath it or a sit pad in order to raise it up a little bit. An alternative to the Trekology is the Hike Enter pillow. It also has a pad strap, but has a little bit of a taller stack height to it, and then has some material on top that adds a little bit of insulation and a little bit of cushioning. To close out the big three, we have that one item that costs over $100, and it's the Neve Werata. I'm butchering that pronunciation, but I'm gonna call it the Neve Werata quilt. This quilt does cost $225, but it really hits all the marks when it comes to providing a good night's sleep in the backcountry. It's very lightweight. It has a lot of features that are going to help lock in heat, like a draft collar around the neck area here, as well as a neck cinch to really close it up around your shoulders. And then, because it's a quilt, you can toss and turn underneath it really easily and not get tangled up. I find quilts way more comfortable than sleeping bags. And this quilt addresses the big knock that people have against quilts, and that's that they might be drafty and you might get cold spots, especially along the sides. But with this quilt, the pad attachment system is raised a little bit from the edge of the quilt. So you have some baffling and material on the side here that really helps close up any gaps between the sleeping pad and the quilt. This quilt in particular also has a comfort rating of -2 degrees Celsius, but I've taken it down to -5 degrees Celsius and been comfortably warm in it. So it is gonna get you down to some of those lower temperatures. You could pay quite a bit less for a sleeping bag that's going to weigh a whole ton more and not be nearly as warm. But I think in this one case, it's better to buy once, cry once. If you're dead set on sleeping bags, an alternative is the Kelty Cosmic 20. It's a pretty good sleeping bag, but weighs quite a bit more than this. And like I said, isn't as warm and is still fairly expensive. The next category of items we're going to talk about is cook systems and water management. For water, you need a filter if you're going into the backcountry in order to treat water and make sure you're not drinking any contaminants. And the budget filter of choice for me is the VersaFlow filter. There's a couple of good things about this filter. The first one being that it has caps on either end. So if temperatures are going to be below freezing overnight, you want to be storing your filter inside of your sleeping bag or quilt with you, and having these caps make sure that you're not going to be getting any water inside of there with you. The other benefit is that this is a reliable filter from a reliable brand. You can get ones that are quite a bit cheaper, but I'm not sure that I would trust them. The one downside with this filter is that it's not the fastest on the market. There's definitely some faster ones, but there's also some slower ones that cost more. So it does kind of meet this nice middle ground. For water bottles, I just keep it simple. I pick up a water bottle, 1 liter water bottle from a gas station, ideally with a flip cap on it, and that's what I use in order to carry and store water when I'm backpacking. For a spoon, I definitely recommend getting a long-handled titanium spoon. Having a long handle on it allows you just to dig to the bottom of freeze-dried meals really easily, and the titanium spoons are really light and don't really cost that much these days. If you want to spend a little bit more money, then get a pink titanium spoon because it's going to make your food taste better, and you can stick in your sleeping bag with you and it's going to help keep you warm. For my cook system, this is another one of those really, really cool items that I think is good even if you're not looking for affordable gear. You can just take a look at this one. It's going to meet a lot of the needs of even the more experienced backpackers out there. Starting with the pot, we have the Fire Maple Petrol Pot. What makes this pot stand out is that it has a heat exchanger on the bottom. So there's these little fins that help transfer heat from the stove into the pot and then into the water so that water boils faster and you use less fuel to boil water. This pot also has a really nice handle that snaps up in order to keep the lid locked on, and you can fit pretty much everything you need inside the pot, including a small fuel canister, the stove, and a lighter. For the stove, we have the Fire Maple Green Peak stove. This stove has a really big wide burner, which is awesome, and then a little lip around the edges in order to help protect it from wind, and then a piezo igniter so you can light the stove without a lighter if you need to. I still recommend bringing a lighter just in case because piezo igniters do fail in the field every once in a while, but this is a really solid stove, especially for the price. You can get the stove and the pot for $50, which is phenomenal for a pot stove combo. A lot of other options that you pick up from big brands from REI and stuff like that will cost 3 or 4 times as much. The one downside with both the stove and the pot is that they're not the lightest options on the market. You can get still affordable, but much lighter options with the BRS 3000 stove and a Toaks pot. That being said, I do think that the Petrol Pot and Green Peak stove are the best kind of combo on the affordable side, especially for more beginner backpackers. For electronics, there's a lot you can bring, but I recommend keeping it pretty minimal. And there's really only 2 key items I think you need to be bringing: a power bank and a headlamp. For the power bank, the Victorinox power bank, 10,000 milliamp hour power bank is an amazing choice. It has multiple inputs and outputs, has a little screen to tell you how much battery life you have left, and then it's fairly lightweight as well. Almost as light as some of the way more expensive options. The one downside, which I think is made up by the fact that it comes in really fun colors, like this purple color here, is that it doesn't have the fastest input or output. There's faster options out there, but it gets the job done. For a headlamp, the Nitecore NU20 Classic is amazing. It's very lightweight, very bright, and then is rechargeable via USB-C plug, which is awesome. And yeah, not much more you need out of a headlamp than this. There are some brighter options, there are some cheaper options, but this is by far one of the best all-arounders at an affordable price. This is the headlamp I bring regardless of price. If I'm just looking to bring the best headlamp, this is the one I'm looking for. Hygiene is something that I think scares a lot of people off from backpacking, and I guess it can be a little bit intimidating. But let's go over some of the key items that you need to be bringing just to keep yourself clean, make sure you're going number 2, that kind of thing. So I keep all my hygiene stuff in this fun Poopmoji bag. First of all, a trowel. So if you are going number 2 in the backcountry, you need to be digging a 6-inch hole, at least 6 to 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches wide, 6 to 8 inches deep. And then you poop into that and then bury your poop. You also need to be cleaning yourself up afterwards. A lot of people will prefer toilet paper since that's what they use at home. But these days, in order to practice good leave no trace, it's important to be packing your toilet paper out with you. But if you don't want to be doing that, I find a backcountry bidet to be an easier method because you don't need to pack anything out, and cleaner because you get some water in there, you get nice and cleaned up, and I just find it way more effective. If you are going number 2, it's also important to wash your hands afterwards. Washing your hands is way more effective than using hand sanitizer, but it's still good practice to squirt some hand sanitizer on afterwards anyways. There's 2 main pieces of clothing that I think it's important to consider affordable options for. Otherwise, you can just be using your shoes from home, your athletic clothing. But for a rain jacket, your rain jacket from home is probably going to be a little bit heavy. So I recommend picking up an affordable one off of Amazon. The Frog Togs are a great option because they're very lightweight, fairly compact, and then don't wet out. The one downside with them is that it's not the most durable rain jacket out there. So if you are bushwhacking a lot, then you might want to either be very careful or bring something a little bit more robust. But for the majority of backpacking trips that I go on, I find that Frog Togs are more than enough, because it just gets the job done. The other important item is a down jacket in order to provide some insulation for yourself when you're at camp. A down jacket for the majority of summer trips is going to be all you need in order to stay warm when you're sitting around camp. And the Decathlon MT100 is a great option. Still under $100, like all the items are except for that quilt. The one downside is that if you are a very cold person a lot of the time, then it may not be warm enough. But Decathlon does have a warmer option, the MT500. And then if you run really, really cold, they also have an MT900. Both those jackets are affordable, over $100, but still quite affordable for what you get with them. I've used this jacket sitting around at around freezing and been perfectly comfortable. There's 2 more kind of random items I want to talk about that I think are important for a backpacking trip. The first one is trekking poles. I find trekking poles make a really big difference if you're carrying a lot of weight or backpacking for long distances. And the Cascade Mountain Tech carbon fiber poles are amazing. You can pick them up at Costco for around $40 or a little bit more on Amazon, and they just work really well. They're durable, they get the job done. The one downside is that the epoxy that they use in order to put the poles together isn't great in cold weather, so you don't want to be using them in wintertime. But as a summer 3-season pole, they're amazing. The other thing is a chair. People will tell you that you don't need a chair on a backpacking trip, but I disagree. I think being able to sit down and have some back support and get off the ground is really, really nice. And spending time around camp comfortably is going to make your backpacking trips a whole lot better. And for only $99, you can get the FlexLight Air Chair from REI. It's insanely lightweight, one of the lightest chairs on the market at only £1, and pretty comfortable as well. So I think if you are going to invest in a comfort item, then this chair is probably the one for you. The one downside is that it still is about $100, and it's not going to be super comfortable for everyone out there, but still beats a log or a rock. Go check out this video if you want to see my ultralight gear list. This video doesn't sacrifice when it comes to performance or weight, but it does cost a little bit more money. So if you are looking for something to invest in, then a lot of the gear in this list is stuff that you can buy once, cry once, and it's going to be awesome for you.